the last assembly, there was an attempt to cure this defect when the 7th Assembly introduced the NFIC, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Center Bill. That was in the House of Reps. And in the Senate, there was Nigerian Financial Intelligence Agency Bill. Again, the two of them were the same in all material effects. You know, they were the same in content and in the structures. Everything is the same. So in pari materia, we are talking about the same law given two names. And then, of course, there was opposition to it because at the time, and I still believe that argument is still valid, that if you look at the procedure of the Egmont Group, when you deviate substantially, when a law deviates substantially from what is on ground, then it will call for fresh evaluation. And that might mean that Nigeria might entirely lose that, may be expelled from the group, and then we'll go for fresh application. But in order to do that, in order to avoid that, there is another school of thought that says that why don't we just go by what the Egmont Group themselves have asked us to do? That is, amend the EFCC Act, delete Section 1, Section 2C, and in its place supplant a new NFIU, give it operational autonomy as well as financial autonomy, and that will be okay. Because at that point in time, you are going to amendment of a law, not creating a new law.
Why would it have this implication of expulsion from the group?
As I said earlier on, you know, they practice worldwide in this kind of situation, particularly from what just happened in Germany. Germany had a law just like the EFCC, but just early this year, around January, they passed a new law, taking its financial intelligence unit, giving it that kind of autonomy. And because it was a total deviation from the law that set it up initially, upon which they got the admission, Egmont expelled Germany. And then they were given mentors, and then they were re-evaluated, and then of course they were just readmitted back into the Egmont Group. So it's not as if it's done to punish, but that's the procedure. That's the procedure. Because we are bringing a new law. They will have to, if we pass the law today, it doesn't mean that automatically they would lift the suspension. They will have to take that law, look at it, particularly their compliance section, to see that those laws comply with their rules and regulations. But the good thing, as I said earlier, is that the EFCC amendments, they asked us to amend, so they know what they are looking for. They said amend Section 1, 2C, take it out, and then, of course, reposition the NFIU there, give it operational as well as financial autonomy, which in the EFCC Amendment B, we've done. We sent it back to them to have a look at it, and they gave us a feedback. They are fine with that, as long as we're able to do it, which we have not. It's still pending.
Now, you have presented two options: amending the EFCC Act or enacting a fresh legislation in the form of this NFIU, which has been passed, the bill which has been passed in the Senate. Which of these two options will be better for Nigeria? Because going from what you are saying, it appears that the easier option would be to amend the EFCC Act.
We've said it over and over before. The Senate was very keen on changing the entire thing. They brought the NFIA bill, and of course, the House of Reps at the time wanted an EFCC amendment to be done because they felt that that would be shorter. So at the end of the day, the House also passed its own NFIC because somehow they were able to meet and agree. So the House passed NFIC bill, the Senate passed NFIA bill, then there was a reconciliation at some point. But the argument has always been, particularly from experts, that there might be more serious, dire consequence if we go by way of a stand-alone law, because we are bringing in something entirely and fundamentally different from what they know. And they have to look at it, study it, and comply. Let me give you something, food for thought. In 2014, when the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Bill was introduced in the in the House, and then the Financial Intelligence Agency introduced in the Senate. The Presidential Advisory Committee on FIU sent a copy of each bill to the Egmont Group to FinCEN, the the Financial Crimes Intelligence Center, Enforcement Center in US, FinCEN. I sent it to them because they were the ones, FinCEN was the one that introduced, that sponsored Nigeria's membership of FIU. So they sent a copy of the two to FinCEN for their review and recommendation. When FinCEN looked at it, they wrote to us and gave us areas they thought we should delete, give better explanation, or entirely, or just take it off. So they gave us those recommendations, about 5-page recommendations. And I can tell you that none of those recommendations was taken into consideration when the bills were passed by the last assembly. Now we are in the 8th assembly. This same bill has resurfaced, and those areas which they felt might be clogs are still there, and we may end up passing the same bill with those areas that they've said we have to change. So we don't want to have a situation where we have a stillborn.
So with these issues, why the haste? Why was the Senate in so much haste to enact fresh legislation to make the NFIU autonomous? Well,
I think maybe the Senate would have to, they have their own points. Let me just say this. They have their points. At the time, we all felt that the Egmont Group gave us 5 months from now till end of December to do this. And of course, if you look at the procedure for making laws, this is a business that started from the previous assembly. So the process will be faster than if it will be a new bill being introduced.